Wilful Blindness would be a good name for a book, don't you think?
You know, it really would be. And I have to level with you guys. When I found a document that said our prime minister was told Australian officials are being accused of willful blindness to the infiltration of the Chinese Communist Party, I said, hey, Sam Cooper, he was onto something. I got to pat myself on the back a little bit there.
So is Trudeau facing any kind of consequences for this? Is this putting him in any kind of hot water?
Politically, it has been a hot half year for the Trudeau government, for the advisors surrounding Mr. Trudeau. My reports and others have raised questions from whistleblower sources that fundraising and donors to the Liberal Party, of which Mr. Trudeau is head, their connectivity to allegedly Beijing's United Front, this very sophisticated foreign interference arm. Is that the reason why this government hasn't acted? He has faced those questions. There have been any number of public hearings in Canada stemming from my reports. In an unusual case, I was summoned to testify myself recently. And so that government, I do not believe has taken accountability. There's a lot of denialism happening, but they are in political hot water. The big question in Ottawa right now is this government running down the clock, or as we say in the hockey country of Canada, ragging the puck, skating away from defenders, trying to let essentially this story die down, hoping that more bombshells don't come out. And it has been a little quiet recently. They want to go on summer break, come back in the fall, and not face these daily questions. Will you agree to a public inquiry? Which, as you know, is what the opposition parties in Canada are demanding right now. A public inquiry into what happened in Canada's last two federal elections and what's happening more broadly with these police stations and just this vast, let's call it an influence, control, harassment mechanism that's attacking democracies, especially Canada.
Well, so remind our audience what happened when the Trudeau government actually appointed a special rapporteur to look into these allegations.
Well, this it reached a level of questions about were there conflicts or perceived conflicts of interest between Canada's former Governor General, the special rapporteur David Johnston, and his connections to the Trudeau family. They had been family skiing buddies. Mr. Johnston wait for it, you can't make this stuff up. He sat on the Trudeau Foundation. He was an important member of that august body that we now know received, it looks like the donor, shortchanged, but, a lot of money from a Chinese Communist Party entity. There were other perceived conflicts that arose. And so Mr. Johnston issued a report within days, I would say, we can say polls showed the majority of Canadians weren't buying it. It was not just these so many perceived connections to Mr. Trudeau himself that made it look like a whitewash or cover up. But guys, how dangerous the United Front is in communities in the United States and in Canada, how there's literally, fear of mentioning the words United Front Work Department. When I talk to my sources in the community, people are talking, they're pointing to notepads and writing things. And it's a real level of fear. Mr. David Johnston's report, essentially, he didn't even touch the United Front. And he said, there's nothing odd going on in diaspora communities. It's natural for there to be, connections with the mainland, which essentially, guys, in my view, he just gave the United Front in Beijing carte blanche to operate because, as you know, and my first report for the Bureau said a Vancouver consul general, Chinese official, bragged to controlling 100 community groups. Mr. Johnston's report had no understanding of that, intelligence control of United Front community groups. And I could go on, but there's so many holes in that paper. It's not worth worth toilet paper in my view.
It's really difficult to hear this. I mean, I can't quite relate because, as an American, we would never have a situation where, potential corruption with China and the highest levels of the government being covered up by the administration, that would never happen.
Nor with Russia.
Nor. So I think it's safe to say that the scope of your investigations has increased a bit from when we first had you on and you were talking about Chinese triads in Vancouver.
No doubt. Again, every time we've talked, I appreciate talking with your team because you get what's happening. It's not a stretch for you to understand that Beijing uses criminal networks worldwide. They use thugs within the country and outside the country as proxies to work with their security agencies. And so I was connecting dots in my book. Really, that's the reason why some whistleblowers reached out. In addition to my work for Global News, my former employer, including, a story showing how the United Front vacuumed up PPE worldwide and in Canada during the pandemic. My book really made connections that, when folks in the Pentagon, that is, U.S. military are asking me to come in for virtual discussions about the findings of my book. When various U.S. law enforcement agencies would like to talk to me, Canadian law enforcement agencies are saying, you're seeing things that we're starting to see. There's something, I did pretty well with that book, and that has led to new levels of reports and sourcing that are directly connected to the PRC interference files, as I call them.
Well, you are independent now. You have this new investigative journalist website, the Bureau. This gives you a lot more freedom to talk about some of the things you are working on. What's the bleeding edge that you're working on?
The bleeding edge right now is looking at these Operation Fox Hunt police stations or police networks. As you know, kudos to the FBI and a jury in New York just weeks ago. One of these initial Fox Hunt cases in which a former New York cop, it looks like a street level, I'm talking about a different person now, a street level thug that left a threat on a person's door, and a fixer, that is someone that hired various people for the Ministry of Public Security. Look, they were all to varying degrees found guilty of a conspiracy of going after people on American soil for the Chinese government. So this is something where we're starting to see cases result in real penalties in the United States. My information is this type of activity, the intensity and the scope is deeper in Canada, as you would expect. It makes sense because Canada has weak laws, really almost no laws with regards to foreign interference. We don't even have a foreign agent registry. As I've said, the Trudeau government has been sitting on recommendations for at least 4 years now, dithering worse. And so my reporting, the cutting edge, the bleeding edge, as you say, will be looking at what were the warnings, what was known around these illegal Chinese operations in Canada. Why did nothing happen? Will we talk about who's involved? As you know, it can be difficult and scary to report on China. So as an independent journalism outlet, I can use all the support, all the readers that I can to get that truth out there. Legal, as I call it, lawfare could be a concern as well. Canada's protections of freedom of speech are not as solid as the United States. So my work will be, showing Canada's weakness in laws and telling as much truth as we can.